Chapter 1. The Scent of Starlight. The kitchen tiles were cold beneath her bare feet. Cold like everything else in the Blackwater estate. Myra's hands moved mechanically, scrubbing dried blood from the hunting knives her stepbrother had left scattered across the counter. The water ran pink, then clear, then pink again. Outside, the compound buzzed with preparation. Lanterns were being strung between the oak trees. Tables were being arranged on the great lawn. Tonight was the lunar gathering, the night when unmated wolves from every pack in the Northern Territory would come seeking their fated mates under the full moon's blessing. Tonight was the night Mira would remain hidden in the servant quarters, as she had for the past 3 years. Mira, the sharp voice cut through her thoughts like a blade. Cordelia swept into the kitchen, her silk dress whispering against the doorframe. Her stepmother was beautiful in the way winter was beautiful, stunning and merciless. The silverware isn't polished. The guest chambers aren't prepared. What have you been doing all morning? Mira kept her eyes down. I was cleaning I don't want excuses. Cordelia's heels clicked closer. My daughters will be meeting Alpha Cade tonight. Do you understand what that means? The most powerful alpha in 3 territories will be here, and everything must be perfect. Yes, ma'am. Look at me when I speak to you. Mira lifted her gaze. Cordelia's eyes were the color of ice on a lake, beautiful and empty. You will stay out of sight tonight. You will not be seen by any guest, especially not by Alpha Cade or his men. If I catch even a glimpse of you near the gathering, if I hear that anyone saw you. She leaned in close, her breath cold against Myra's ear. I will make you wish you'd never been born into this family. It wasn't an empty threat. Mira had the scars to prove it. Do you understand? Yes, ma'am. Cordelia straightened, smoothing her dress. Good. Now finish your work and disappear. When she was gone, Mira released the breath she'd been holding. Her hands trembled as she returned to the knives. 3 more hours until sunset. 3 more hours until the guests arrived. Then she could retreat to the storage room in the East Wing, where no one would think to look for her. She had survived worse nights than this. At least, that's what she told herself. Miles away, in the obsidian tower that overlooked the Shadowpine territory, Cade stood at the window and watched storm clouds gather on the horizon. You're brooding again. The voice belonged to Marcus, his second in command. That's never a good sign. Cade didn't turn. The lunar gathering is a waste of time. It's tradition. It's theater. Cade's reflection in the glass was all sharp edges and contained violence. A parade of ambitious families pushing their daughters at me like offerings to a god. Marcus moved to stand beside him. You need a mate, Cade. The pack elders are getting restless. They say a pack without a Luna is a pack without balance. The pack has balance. It has strength. It has order. It has fear, Marcus said quietly. And fear only holds for so long. Cade's jaw tightened. He knew Marcus was right. His wolf had been growing more restless with each passing year, more violent, more difficult to control. The elders whispered that an alpha without a mate bond eventually went feral, that the wolf consumed the man until there was nothing left but rage. He felt it sometimes, that darkness pressing against the edges of his consciousness. The urge to destroy, to dominate, to let the beast take over completely. This is the last one, Cade said finally. I'll attend this gathering, and if I don't find her. He didn't finish the sentence. They both knew what it meant. If he didn't find his fated mate soon, he would have to choose someone. Anyone. A political match to satisfy the pack and keep the wolf at bay. A life sentence with a stranger. The car is ready, Marcus said. We should leave within the hour if we want to arrive before moonrise. Cade nodded. He turned from the window, pulling on the formal black coat that marked his rank. As he fastened the silver clasps, he felt the familiar weight of command settle over him like armor. He was Alpha Cade, ruler of the Shadowpine Pack, terror of the Northern Territories. He had survived challenges from rivals, wars with rogue packs, and assassination attempts from enemies on all sides. Surely he could survive one more evening of false smiles and empty conversations. As he descended the tower stairs, his wolf stirred restlessly beneath his skin. She's out there, it whispered. Tonight. Find her. Cade ignored the instinct. His wolf had been saying that for years, and every time it had been wrong. Tonight would be no different. Mira finished the last of her tasks as the sun began to set. She could hear music starting outside, the elegant string quartet that Cordelia had hired from the city. Laughter drifted through the open windows, bright and cruel. She made her way through the servants' corridors, the hidden passages that ran through the walls of the estate like veins through a body. No one used them anymore except her. The storage room in the east wing had a small window that looked out over the gardens. She could see the gathering from there without being seen. It was safer that way. She pushed open the narrow door and slipped inside. The room smelled of dust and forgotten things. Old furniture covered in sheets, boxes of decorations from celebrations long past. She moved to the window and looked out. The lawn was transformed. Hundreds of lanterns cast a warm golden glow over the assembled wolves. Women in elegant gowns and men in formal attire moved through the crowd like pieces on a chessboard. At the center of it all stood Cordelia, resplendent in midnight blue, her daughters flanking her like twin daggers. And then she saw him. He arrived in a black car that moved through the gates like a predator stalking prey. When he stepped out, the entire gathering seemed to shift, to orient itself toward him like flowers turning toward the sun. Alpha Cade. Even from this distance, Mira could feel the power radiating from him. He was tall, broader than any wolf she'd ever seen, with dark hair and features that looked carved from stone. He moved through the crowd with the casual confidence of someone who knew he was the most dangerous thing in any room. Cordelia rushed forward to greet him, her smile sharp and practiced. Her daughters curtsied deeply, their movements rehearsed to perfection. Mira should have looked away, should have retreated deeper into the shadows. But she couldn't move. There was something about him that held her frozen at the window. Something that made her wolf, the part of her she'd learned to bury deep and keep silent, suddenly stir to life. And then, impossible as it seemed, he went still. His head turned slowly, scanning the estate, the crowd, the windows. Searching. Myra's heart began to pound. No, he couldn't possibly sense her. She was too far away, too hidden, too insignificant. But his eyes continued to sweep the building, moving closer, closer. She jerked back from the window, pressing herself against the wall, her chest heaving. That was impossible. She was imagining things. But her wolf was awake now, fully awake for the first time in years, and it was howling one word over and over inside her mind. Mate. Cade stopped mid-step. The scent hit him like a physical blow, wild honeysuckle and rain-soaked earth, with an undertone of something uniquely her. It cut through all the perfumes and colognes, all the carefully crafted masks, straight to the primal core of his wolf. His entire world tilted. Marcus grabbed his arm. Cade, what is it? He couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Every instinct in his body was screaming at him to move, to hunt, to find the source of that scent before it disappeared. Mate, mate. His wolf wasn't whispering anymore. It was roaring. She's here, Cade growled, the sound barely human. Who? My mate. He pulled away from Marcus, his eyes burning gold as his wolf surged to the surface. She's here. The crowd around them had fallen silent, sensing the shift in the alpha's energy. Cordelia stepped forward, her smile frozen on her face. Alpha Cade, is something wrong? He ignored her. His senses were wide open now, tracking that impossible scent. It was faint, suppressed somehow, but it was there. Coming from the east wing? He started walking, his stride long and purposeful. The crowd parted before him like water. Alpha Cade pleased the gathering. Cordelia's voice had taken on a note of panic. He didn't care. Nothing mattered except finding her. The scent grew stronger as he moved toward the estate, toward a part of the building that looked dark and abandoned. And then, just for an instant, he saw her. A face at a high window, pale in the darkness. Wide eyes that reflected the moonlight like mirrors. Their gazes locked, and the bond snapped into place with the force of a lightning strike. The world went white. When his vision cleared, she was gone. The window was empty. But the scent remained, burned into his senses like a brand. Marcus appeared at his side, breathing hard. Cade, you need to slow down. You're scaring the guests. Someone is hiding my mate, Cade said, his voice deadly quiet. Someone in this house knows she's here and is keeping her from me. He turned to face Cordelia, who had followed them to the entrance. Her face had gone pale beneath her makeup. I asked you a question earlier, he said softly, about who lived in this estate. You gave me a list of your family members. Was that list complete? Yes, of course, Alpha Cade. My 2 daughters, myself, and the household staff. Show me the staff. I don't understand. Now. The word was a whip crack of command. Cordelia flinched, then nodded quickly. Of course. Right away. As she hurried to gather the servants, Cade looked back up at the dark window. I'm coming for you, he thought. Whoever's hiding you, whatever they've done to you, it ends tonight. His wolf growled in agreement, a sound that promised violence to anyone who stood between him and his mate. The gathering, the politics, the carefully laid plans, all of it burned away like paper in a fire. Nothing mattered now except her. Chapter 2: The Hunt. Mira ran. Her bare feet slapped against the cold stone floors of the hidden corridors. Her breath came in ragged gasps that burned her throat. Behind her, she could hear voices. Cordelia's sharp commands, the confused murmurs of the household staff being assembled, and beneath it all, a low rumbling growl that made every instinct in her body scream in primal recognition. Mate. No. She couldn't think that. Couldn't let herself believe it. She was nothing. A servant. A ghost in her own family's house. Someone like Alpha Cade didn't have someone like her as a mate. It was impossible. It had to be a mistake. But her wolf knew better. Her wolf was singing. She burst through a narrow doorway into the old wine cellar, a place so forgotten that even the cobwebs had cobwebs. She pressed herself into the darkest corner, wrapping her arms around her knees, trying to make herself invisible. It was what she'd learned to do. Disappear. Survive. Above her, she could hear footsteps. Many footsteps. They were searching the house. Cordelia's voice drifted down through the floorboards, honeyed and false. I assure you, Alpha Cade, all of our staff are accounted for. Perhaps you were mistaken. I don't make mistakes about my mate. His voice was like thunder rolling across mountains. Her scent is everywhere in this house. Someone is hiding her, and when I find out who, they will pray for a merciful death. Myra's heart hammered against her ribs. She should feel afraid. She was afraid. But beneath the fear was something else. A warmth spreading through her chest, a fierce joy that someone was searching for her. That she mattered to someone. The feeling was so foreign it almost hurt. Perhaps one of the kitchen staff? Cordelia suggested, her voice strained. We did hire several new girls this season. Bring them all to me. Every servant, every worker, everyone who lives or works in this house. Now, there was no arguing with that tone. Mira heard Cordelia's retreating footsteps, heard her barking orders at the other servants. She had minutes, maybe less, before they searched every room. Before they found her here, cowering in the dark like the worthless thing Cordelia had always told her she was. The thought sparked something hot and angry in her chest. No, she wasn't worthless. She wasn't nothing. If she was truly his mate, if the bond she felt thrumming through her veins was real, then she was something. Someone. But fear was a powerful thing, and it had been her companion for so long. Mira closed her eyes and pressed her forehead against her knees, her mother's last words echoing in her memory. Words spoken on a deathbed 3 years ago, when everything had still been good. You are stronger than you know, my little moon. When the time comes, don't hide from your light. Shine. She hadn't understood then. She'd only been 16, and her mother had been delirious with fever. But now, Mira took a shaking breath. Then another. She could stay here in the dark and let Cordelia find her, punish her, maybe even kill her to keep the secret of her existence from Alpha Cade. Or she could stand up. The choice seemed impossible. The fear was overwhelming. But her wolf was howling now, demanding she go to her mate. And somewhere deep inside, beneath all the years of abuse and fear, a tiny spark of her mother's strength still remained. Mira uncurled herself from the corner. Her legs shook as she stood. Her whole body trembled. But she moved toward the stairs. Cade stood in the entrance hall. Every servant in the Blackwater household lined up before him. His wolf was pacing, snarling, demanding blood. None of them were her. He could smell the fear rolling off them, sharp and acrid. Good. They should be afraid. Someone here knew where she was, and his patience was a thread about to snap. Marcus stood at his shoulder, tense and ready. The other wolves from their pack had spread throughout the house, searching every room, every closet, every shadow. Is this everyone? Cade asked, his voice deceptively soft. Cordelia wrung her hands. Yes, Alpha Cade. Every member of the household staff. I don't understand what you're lying. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Cordelia's face went white. I assure you. Her scent is on these walls. On the floors. In the air I'm breathing. Cade took a step toward her, and she stumbled back. She lives here. She's part of this household. And you've been hiding her. I don't know what you're talking about. Mother. The voice came from one of Cordelia's daughters, Lyanna, the younger one. She was pale, her hands shaking. "Mother, please. You can't, he'll kill you." "Be quiet," Cordelia hissed. But Lyanna shook her head, tears streaming down her face. "I can't. I won't be part of this anymore." She turned to Cade, her voice breaking. "She's in the East Wing cellar. Her name is Mira. She's my stepsister." The world seemed to stop. "Your stepsister," Cade repeated slowly. "And where exactly is she supposed to be right now?" "Hidden," Lyanna whispered. "Mother made her hide whenever guests came. She said Mira was an embarrassment to the family, that she wasn't fit to be seen." The rage that filled Cade was cold and absolute. His wolf demanded he rip Cordelia apart right there in the entrance hall. Consequences be damned. But Marcus's hand on his shoulder grounded him. "Not yet. Find her first." "Show me," Cade commanded. Lyanna nodded quickly and started toward the East Wing. Cade followed, Marcus and several of his wolves flanking him. Behind them, he heard Cordelia's sharp intake of breath. "You can't, she's nothing. She'll ruin everything." Cade turned, and the look in his eyes made Cordelia stumble backward into her other daughter. "If I find out you've harmed her," he said, each word precise and deadly, "I will burn this house to the ground with you inside it, and I will make sure it takes days." Then he turned and followed Lyanna into the dark corridors of the East Wing. Mira was halfway up the cellar stairs when she heard footsteps above. Multiple sets. Coming fast. She froze, her heart in her throat. Then a door crashed open, and light flooded down the stairs, blinding after the darkness. She threw up her arm to shield her eyes, stumbling backward. Her foot missed a step, and she felt herself falling. Strong hands caught her. The touch sent electricity racing across her skin, igniting every nerve ending. The scent that enveloped her was pine and winter night, and something wild and untamed. "Mate, I've got you." His voice was rough, raw with emotion. Mira slowly lowered her arm, blinking against the light, and saw him. Alpha Cade was even more imposing up close. He'd caught her easily, one arm around her waist, the other supporting her back. His eyes, burning gold in the dim light, searched her face with an intensity that should have been frightening. But she wasn't afraid. For the first time in 3 years, standing in the arms of the most dangerous alpha in the Northern Territories, Mira wasn't afraid. "You're hurt," he said, his voice dropping to a growl. His hand was tracing the scar on her cheek, the one Cordelia had given her last winter. "Who did this to you?" She couldn't find her voice, could only stare at him, at this impossible man who was looking at her like she was precious, like she mattered. "Tell me who hurt you," he said again, and there was murder in his voice now. "Give me their name." "I." Her voice came out as barely a whisper. She tried again. "My stepmother, Cordelia." Something dark and terrible passed across his face. Then, with infinite gentleness, he lifted her fully into his arms and carried her up the stairs. The household staff and Cordelia's family were still gathered in the entrance hall. When Cade emerged carrying Mira, the silence was deafening. Cordelia's face had gone from white to gray. "Alpha Cade, please, you don't understand. She's mentally unstable. She makes up stories." "Another word," Cade said quietly, "and I will remove your tongue." Cordelia's mouth snapped shut. Cade looked down at Mira, his expression softening. "You're safe now. No one will ever hurt you again." Then he turned to Marcus. "Gather evidence. I want documentation of everything. Every injury, every instance of abuse, every day she was locked away like an animal. Cordelia Blackwater will stand trial before the Pack Council for crimes against a mate-bonded wolf." "No." Cordelia lurched forward. "You can't, she's nothing. She's not even." "She is my mate," Cade roared, and his alpha voice shook the chandelier above their heads. Every wolf in the room instantly dropped to one knee, compelled by the sheer force of his command. "She is my Luna, and anyone who harms her, anyone who even speaks ill of her, will answer to me." He looked at each person in the hall, his eyes burning with golden fire. "Do I make myself clear?" A chorus of "Yes, Alpha," echoed through the hall. Satisfied, Cade turned and carried Mira toward the front door, toward the car waiting outside, toward freedom. She should say something, should thank him, or explain, But her wolf was purring with contentment, and her head fit perfectly in the curve of his neck, and for the first time in 3 years she felt warm. So she stayed quiet and let herself be carried into the night. Behind them, Cordelia Blackwater collapsed to the floor, her carefully constructed world crumbling to ash around her. The drive to Shadowpine territory passed in a blur. Mira was aware of the car's movement, of Marcus driving while Cade held her in the back seat, but it all felt dreamlike. Unreal. "What's your name?" Cade asked softly. She looked up at him. "Mira. Mira Blackwater." "Mira." He said it like it was something precious. "You'll need a new name soon. Blackwater doesn't deserve to claim you." She didn't know what to say to that. His thumb was tracing gentle circles on her arm, the touch soothing and electric all at once. "How long were they hiding you?" 3 years. "Since my father died." His jaw tightened. "And before that," she swallowed. "Before that, I was their daughter, their heir. But when father died, there was no one left to stop Cordelia from doing what she'd always wanted. Which was erasing me." The growl that rumbled through his chest was inhuman. Mira should have been frightened. Instead, she felt protected. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm sorry I'm not what you expected. I'm not elegant like the other women at the gathering. I don't know how to be a Luna." "Stop." He tilted her chin up, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You are exactly what I need. Do you understand? The moon doesn't make mistakes. You are mine, and I am yours, and nothing else matters." Tears burned at the back of her throat. She'd imagined this moment so many times in her darkest hours. Imagined someone coming for her, saving her. But she'd always imagined it would be temporary. That eventually, they'd realize she wasn't worth saving. But the look in Cade's eyes said something different. It said forever. "We're here," Marcus announced from the front seat. Mira looked out the window and gasped. Shadowpine Packlands were nothing like Blackwater territory. Where her family's estate was cold stone and manicured lawns, this was wild and alive. Dense forests stretched in every direction, and at the center of it all stood an obsidian tower that caught the moonlight and threw it back in shards of silver. "Home," Cade said simply. "You're home now." The car stopped at the base of the tower. When Cade carried her inside, she was struck by the warmth of it. Fireplaces blazed in every room they passed. Wolves in various states of shift nodded respectfully as their alpha passed, their eyes curious but not unkind when they looked at her. Cade took her to a large chamber near the top of the tower. The room was dominated by a massive bed covered in furs, and one entire wall was glass, overlooking the forest. He set her down gently on the bed, then knelt in front of her, bringing them eye to eye. "I know this is overwhelming," he said. "I know you've been through hell, and now I'm asking you to trust a stranger. But I need you to understand something." She nodded, unable to speak. "From this moment forward, you are under my protection. You are my mate, my Luna, and that means you are the second most powerful wolf in this territory. No one can hurt you. No one can command you except me, and I will never use that power to harm you. Do you understand?" "Yes," she whispered. "Good." He stood, and she saw him struggling with something. "You need rest. There's a bathroom through that door. Everything you need should be there. I'll have food sent up. Tomorrow, we'll talk about everything. The bond, the pack, what happens next. But tonight." He moved toward the door, and she felt a spike of panic. "Wait, where are you going?" He turned back, surprised. "To give you space. Privacy. You've just escaped a nightmare, Mira. I won't presume." "Stay." The word came out before she could stop it. "Please. I don't want to be alone." For a long moment, he just looked at her. Then he nodded slowly. "I'll stay. I'll sleep in the chair by the window. You have the bed." "Thank you." He moved to the chair, settling into it with the fluid grace of a predator. Even sitting, he looked dangerous, powerful. But his eyes, when they met hers, were gentle. Mira curled up on the bed, pulling the soft furs around her. She should be terrified, should be questioning everything. But the bond was a warm, golden thread connecting her to him, and for the first time in years, she felt safe enough to close her eyes. As she drifted toward sleep, she heard his voice, low and rough. "Sleep well, little mate. No more nightmares. I promise." And somehow, impossibly, she believed him. Chapter 3: The Awakening. Mira woke to sunlight streaming through the glass wall, warm and golden. For a disorienting moment, she didn't know where she was. The bed was too soft, the air too warm, the light too bright. Then memory crashed back. Alpha Cade. The mate bond. Escape. She sat up quickly, her heart racing, and found him still in the chair by the window, watching her with those intense golden eyes. "You stayed," she said, her voice still rough with sleep. I said I would. He stood, stretching with the casual power of someone completely comfortable in his own body. How did you sleep? She paused, realizing something. I didn't dream. I always dream. Nightmares. She nodded. The mate bond soothes the wolf. You felt safe, so you slept deeply. He moved toward the door. I'll have breakfast brought up. There are clothes in the wardrobe. They should fit well enough until we can get you properly outfitted. Take your time. No one will disturb you. Cade. She surprised herself by using his name. He turned back, something pleased flickering in his expression. What happens now? Now, he considered the question. Now you rest. You heal. You learn what it means to be Luna of Shadowpine. And when you're ready, his eyes darkened with promise. We complete the bond. Heat flooded her cheeks. She looked down at her hands. But there's no rush, he added, his voice gentling. The bond is patient. I'm patient. You set the pace, Mira. Always. Then he was gone, the door clicking softly shut behind him. Mira sat in the enormous bed, wrapped in furs that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned, and tried to process the fact that her entire life had changed overnight. She was a Luna now, or would be, once the bond was complete. The thought should terrify her. Instead, there was a flutter of something else in her chest. Something that felt dangerously like hope. Cade descended the tower stairs, his wolf still restless despite having their mate safe under their roof. Every instinct demanded he stay with her, watch over her, never let her out of his sight. But he was also alpha, and there were things that needed his attention. Marcus was waiting in his study, along with 3 other senior pack members. They all stood when he entered, their expressions grave. Report, Cade said, moving to stand behind his desk. Marcus pulled out a tablet. We've documented everything we found at the Blackwater estate. The room where she was kept, it was barely larger than a closet. No heat, minimal light. We found evidence of long-term malnutrition, physical abuse, isolation. His jaw tightened. Alpha, by pack law, what Cordelia Blackwater did constitutes torture of a bonded mate. I'm aware. Cade's voice was cold. Sentence. For crimes of this nature against a Luna? Death. The word hung in the air. Part of Cade, the wolf part, the vengeful part, wanted nothing more than to carry out that sentence personally. To make Cordelia pay for every scar on Myra's body, every nightmare, every moment of fear. But the other part, the part that had looked into Myra's eyes this morning and seen fragile hope beginning to bloom, hesitated. What does the Luna want? Asked Elena, his head enforcer. Has she made her wishes known? I haven't asked her yet. Cade moved to the window, looking out over his territory. She's barely processed that she's safe. I won't burden her with this decision until she's stronger. With respect, Alpha, Elena said carefully, it's her decision to make. She's the one who was harmed. Pack law gives her the right to determine justice. Cade knew she was right, but the thought of Mira having to face Cordelia again, having to relive the trauma to testify, made his wolf snarl with protective rage. There's another complication, Marcus said. News of your mate bond is spreading fast. By tomorrow, every alpha in the Northern Territories will know. Some will send congratulations. Others will see it as weakness, Cade finished. A Luna who is abused and hidden away. They'll think she's not strong enough to stand beside me. Let them think it, Elena said, her eyes flashing. We know better. Anyone who saw what happened last night knows better. You went full alpha for her. You threatened a noble house. You made it clear that anyone who harms her answers to you personally. It won't be enough. This came from Damon, his strategic advisor. The old guard already questions your rule. They say you're too brutal, too unpredictable. Now you've bonded with a wolf they see as damaged goods. He raised a hand when Cade growled. They're words, not mine. But we need to be prepared for challenges. Then we prepare. Cade turned to face them. Double the patrols. I want eyes on every border. If anyone moves against Shadowpine, I want to know before they take their first step into our territory. And the Luna? Marcus asked. What's your plan for introducing her to the pack? Cade was quiet for a moment. Carefully. She's been isolated and abused for 3 years. Throwing her into pack politics immediately would be cruel. She needs time. Time is a luxury we may not have, Damon warned. The pack expects to meet their Luna. The longer you wait, the more they'll speculate. Rumors will spread. Let them spread. Cade's voice was final. My mate's well-being comes before pack expectations. Anyone who has a problem with that can challenge me directly. The finality in his tone ended the discussion. They knew better than to push when he used that voice. After they filed out, Cade remained at the window, lost in thought. The bond was still new, still fragile. He could feel Mira moving around in the chamber above. She must have gotten out of bed, was probably exploring. The urge to go to her was overwhelming. But he forced himself to stay where he was. She needed space. She needed to feel like she had choices, control over her own life. After 3 years of having everything stripped from her, the last thing she needed was an overbearing mate, even one who meant well. But damn, it was hard to resist. His wolf paced restlessly beneath his skin, whining. Mate. Want mate. Protect mate. Soon, Cade murmured. Be patient. The wolf was not patient. But it would have to learn. Mira stood in front of the wardrobe, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of clothing inside. Dresses, pants, shirts, all in rich fabrics and deep colors. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked, not her. She finally chose the simplest outfit she could find, black pants and a soft gray sweater. They fit perfectly, which should have been surprising, except she was starting to realize that Cade was the type to think of everything. There was a knock at the door. She tensed automatically, then forced herself to relax. Come in, she called, her voice stronger than she expected. A young woman entered, carrying a tray laden with food. She had warm brown skin and kind eyes, and she smiled when she saw Mira. Good morning, Luna. I'm Sage, one of the house staff. Alpha Cade asked me to bring you breakfast. She set the tray on a small table by the window. If you need anything at all, just let me know. I'm here to help. Thank you, Mira said softly. Then, because she had to know. Are the pack members, do they know? About me? Sage's expression gentled. They know you're the Alpha's mate. That's all they need to know. And if I may say so, Luna, we're all thrilled. The Alpha has been alone for so long. Seeing him with someone who clearly matters to him. She smiled. It gives us hope. Hope. That word again. After Sage left, Mira sat at the table and looked at the food. Fresh fruit, warm bread, eggs, bacon. More food than she'd normally eat in a week at Blackwater. She ate slowly, savoring each bite. It felt strange, being allowed to eat without fear. Without someone watching to make sure she didn't take too much. When she was done, she moved to the glass wall and looked out over the forest. Somewhere out there was a pack of wolves who expected her to be their Luna. Who expected her to be strong, capable, worthy of standing beside their Alpha. She pressed her hand against the glass, feeling the warmth of the sun. You are stronger than you know, my little moon. When the time comes, don't hide from your light. Shine. Her mother's words. Always her mother's words, when she needed them most. Maybe strength wasn't about never being afraid. Maybe it was about being afraid and choosing to stand anyway. The door opened again, and this time it was Cade. He looked surprised to find her out of bed. You're up, he said. I couldn't sleep anymore. She turned to face him. I need to ask you something. He moved closer, but stopped a respectful distance away. Anything. Cordelia. My stepmother. What's going to happen to her? His expression darkened. She'll be tried before the Pack Council for crimes against a bonded mate. Given the evidence, the sentence will likely be death. Myra's breath caught. Death? Yes. His voice was hard. What she did to you. The abuse, the isolation, keeping you from your mate. Those are capital crimes under Pack law. If you were anyone else, it would be bad enough. But you're a Luna. Harming a Luna is considered an attack on the Pack itself. She was quiet for a long moment, processing this. Part of her, the part that still bore Cordelia's scars, wanted justice. Wanted her stepmother to pay. But another part, the part her mother had raised to be kind, hesitated. What if I don't want her to die? She asked softly. Cade's expression flickered with surprise. Then she won't. This is your choice, Mira. You're the victim. You decide the justice. I don't know if I can make that choice right now. Then don't. He moved closer, and this time when he took her hand, the touch sent warmth flooding through her. You have time. The trial won't happen for at least 2 weeks. That gives you time to heal, to think, to decide what you need. She looked up at him, this powerful Alpha who could command armies, but was offering her control over her own justice. Thank you, she whispered. You don't thank me for what should be yours by right. His thumb traced gentle circles on the back of her hand. Now, I have a question for you. What? Are you ready to meet the pack? Or do you need more time? The question sent a spike of anxiety through her. Meet the pack. Face dozens, maybe hundreds, of wolves who would judge her, measure her, decide if she was worthy. Her first instinct was to say no. To hide, to wait, to put it off as long as possible. But that was Cordelia's voice in her head. That was 3 years of conditioning telling her to make herself small. I'm ready, she said, and was surprised to find she meant it. Cade smiled, and it transformed his severe features into something breathtaking. Then let me show you your pack, Luna. Chapter 4, The Pack. The great hall of Shadowpine was carved from stone and timber, with soaring ceilings that disappeared into shadow. Torches lined the walls, casting dancing light across the assembled wolves. There were so many of them. Myra's hand tightened on Cade's arm as they stood at the entrance. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, assessing, judging. Her wolf, still awakening after years of forced dormancy, wanted to tuck tail and run. Breathe, Cade murmured, low enough that only she could hear. You're not alone. I'm right here. She nodded, forcing air into her lungs. Then they walked forward together. The crowd parted before them, wolves bowing their heads in respect as their alpha passed. Cade led her to a raised platform at the far end of the hall where 2 chairs sat. Thrones, really, carved from dark wood and inlaid with silver. He helped her into the smaller one, then took his own seat. Marcus stood to his right, Elena to his left. The positions of power. Wolves of Shadowpine. Cade's voice rang out, commanding instant silence. I present to you your Luna, Mira of Blackwater, my fated mate, chosen by the moon herself. The hall erupted in howls, the traditional pack greeting. The sound was overwhelming, primal, beautiful. Mira felt her wolf respond, wanting to howl back, but she didn't know if she was allowed. As if sensing her hesitation, Cade leaned close. They're greeting you. You can answer. She took a breath, then let out a tentative howl. It was soft, uncertain, nothing like the powerful calls echoing around her. But it was hers. The pack howled louder in response, accepting her answer. Accepting her. When the noise died down, an older wolf stepped forward from the crowd. He was gray-haired but moved with the lethal grace of a warrior. His eyes, when they met Myra's, were sharp and assessing. Alpha Cade, he said, his voice carrying easily through the hall. We rejoice at your bonding. But the pack has questions. Speak, Council Elder Garrett. Garrett's gaze shifted to Mira. The Luna comes from Blackwater, a house with a complicated history. There are rumors of abuse, of hidden circumstances. The pack needs to know, is our Luna strong enough to lead us? The question was like a slap. Mira felt her cheeks burn, shame and anger warring inside her. But before she could respond, Cade was on his feet. You question her strength? His voice was deadly quiet, more dangerous than any shout. She survived 3 years of torture that would have broken lesser wolves. She endured isolation, starvation, and abuse, and came out the other side with her spirit intact. She is stronger than half the warriors in this hall. With respect, Alpha. No. Cade's eyes flashed gold. There is no with respect here. You either accept your Luna or you challenge me directly. Those are your options. The silence that followed was absolute. Garrett's face had gone pale. No one challenged Cade. Everyone knew what happened to wolves who tried. But then Mira stood. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to meet Garrett's eyes. The elder asks a fair question, she said, her voice carrying more steadily than she expected. You don't know me. You have every right to wonder if I'm worthy of standing beside your alpha. Mira. Cade's voice held a warning, but she pressed on. I can't promise I'll be perfect. I don't know all the customs yet. I don't know how to be a Luna the way you expect. She looked around the hall, meeting as many eyes as she could. But I can promise I'll learn. I can promise I'll fight for this pack, protect this pack, serve this pack with everything I have. And I can promise that anyone who threatens Shadowpine will have to go through me. The words hung in the air. Then slowly, Elena began to clap. The sound was sharp and deliberate. Others joined in. First Marcus, then the younger wolves, then more and more until the entire hall was filled with the sound of approval. Garrett studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Your words are well spoken, Luna. I apologize for doubting. He bowed, deep and respectful, and retreated into the crowd. Myra's knees nearly gave out. Cade's hand was immediately at her elbow, steadying her. Well done, he murmured, pride evident in his voice. The formal part of the gathering dissolved into something more casual. Wolves approached in small groups, offering congratulations, introducing themselves. Mira tried to remember names and faces, but there were so many. A young woman with bright red hair and freckles bounded up, her energy infectious. "Luna, I'm Riley, one of the trackers. I just wanted to say, what you said about learning and fighting for the pack. That was amazing. Some of us were worried you'd be all." She waved her hand vaguely. "Delicate and ceremonial. But you're real. I like that." "Thank you," Mira said, genuinely touched. "If you ever want to learn to track or hunt, let me know. I'd be happy to teach you." The offer was casual but meaningful. An acceptance. A welcome. "I'd like that," Mira said. As Riley moved away, more wolves came forward. Not all of them were friendly. She could see suspicion in some eyes, calculation in others. But most seemed genuinely pleased to meet her. An hour passed, then two. Myra's feet ached and her face hurt from smiling, but she didn't complain. This was important. These were her people now. Finally, Cade leaned down and whispered, "You're exhausted. We can leave." "I'm fine," she started to say, but he shook his head. "You're swaying on your feet. Come on." He made their excuses and led her out of the hall. The moment they were in the quiet corridor, Myra's knees buckled. Cade caught her easily, lifting her into his arms. "I knew it. You pushed too hard." "I had to," she protested weakly. "They needed to see I'm not weak." "You're not weak. But you're also still recovering." He carried her up the tower stairs with no apparent effort. "There's a difference between strength and stubbornness, little mate." Despite her exhaustion, Mira felt a smile tug at her lips. "Are you always this protective? With you?" "Yes. Get used to it." When they reached the chamber, he set her gently on the bed. She expected him to leave, to give her space like he had the night before. Instead, he knelt in front of her and began unlacing her boots. "What are you doing?" she asked, heat flooding her cheeks. "Taking care of you." He slipped off one boot, then the other, his touch gentle. "You did well tonight, Mira. Better than well. You were magnificent. I was terrified. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it." He stood, moving to the wardrobe. He pulled out a soft nightgown and handed it to her. "Change. Get some rest. I'll be in the next room if you need me." "Wait." The word escaped before she could stop it. "Stay. Like last night." He studied her face. "Are you sure?" She nodded. "I sleep better when you're here." Something warm flickered in his eyes. "All right. I'll stay." She changed in the bathroom, then climbed into bed. Cade settled into the chair by the window, his familiar position. But this time, as Mira drifted towards sleep, she heard him speak. "You asked me earlier what happens now. I think you're starting to figure it out. You're not just surviving anymore, Mira. You're beginning to live." His words followed her into sleep, where for the second night in a row, there were no nightmares. Only dreams of moonlight and running free through endless forests. The next morning brought trouble. Mira woke to raised voices below. She dressed quickly and made her way down to Cade's study, following the sound. "Can't ignore this," Marcus was saying. "It's a direct challenge." "What's happened?" Mira asked from the doorway. All three wolves, Cade, Marcus, and Elena, turned to look at her. Cade's expression was dark with barely contained fury. "Alpha Ronin of Ironjaw Pack has issued a formal challenge," Elena said. "He's questioning the legitimacy of your bond." Myra's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It means," Cade said, his voice tight with anger, "that he's claiming our bond is false, that I'm making it up to consolidate power or hide weakness. He's demanding proof before the Northern Council." "Proof?" Mira moved into the room. "What kind of proof?" The three exchanged glances. Finally, Marcus spoke. "The only proof that satisfies the old laws is a completed bond. A mating mark, visible and undeniable." Heat flooded Myra's face as understanding dawned. The mating mark came from the final stage of bonding, the claiming bite exchanged during. "No," Cade said firmly, seeing where her thoughts had gone. "I won't rush you into that just because some territorial asshole wants to play politics. We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Elena said quietly. "Not one that the council will accept. You know how they are about tradition. Then the council can." "Wait." Myra's voice was stronger than she felt. "When is this meeting with the Northern Council?" 2 weeks, Marcus said. "At the gathering grounds. 2 weeks. 14 days to decide if she was ready for the final stage of the bond. Ready to be claimed, marked, bound to Cade in the most permanent way possible." The thought terrified her. But it also sparked something else. A fierce anger that anyone would question what was between her and Cade. That anyone would try to use her as a weapon against him. What happens if we can't provide proof? She asked. Ronan can challenge me for alpha rights, Cade said. It would mean war between our packs. Hundreds dead, all because one ambitious wolf wants my territory. Then we provide proof, Mira said. Cade's head snapped toward her. Mira, no. I won't pressure you. You're not pressuring me. I'm choosing. She met his eyes, hoping he could see the certainty there. We're mates. The bond is real. If this is what we need to do to protect the pack, then we do it. You have 2 weeks to decide, Cade said firmly. Don't make this choice in anger or fear. Make it when you're ready. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes stopped her. He was right. This was too important to rush. Fine, she said. 2 weeks. But Cade, I'm not going to change my mind. After Marcus and Elena left, Cade came to stand in front of her. He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. You don't have to prove anything to anyone, he said softly. Least of all to me. I know. She leaned into his touch. But I want to. Not because Ronan demands it, but because you're mine. And I want everyone to know it. The growl that rumbled through his chest was pure satisfaction. His eyes blazed gold. Say that again. You're mine, she whispered. He leaned his forehead against hers, breathing her in. And you're mine. But when we complete this bond, it will be because you're ready. Not because of politics or pressure. Understood. Understood. But as they stood there, the mate bond humming between them, Mira knew the truth. She was already his. Had been from the moment their eyes met across that dark attic. Now she just had to be brave enough to claim what was hers. Chapter 5. The Training. The training grounds were a cleared expanse of hard-packed earth at the edge of the forest. Mira stood at the perimeter, watching wolves spar in pairs, their movements a deadly dance of speed and power. You ready for this? Riley appeared at her elbow, grinning. The red-haired tracker had become something of a friend over the past few days. One of the few wolves who treated Mira like a person rather than a fragile piece of luna-shaped glass. I'm not sure, Mira admitted. I've never trained before. Cordelia didn't allow it. Well, Cordelia's not here. Riley's grin widened. And Elena's the best teacher in the pack. You're in good hands. Elena materialized from the crowd of sparring wolves, her dark hair pulled back in a severe braid. She looked Mira up and down with a critical eye. You're too thin, she said bluntly. Weak muscle tone. Poor stance. We have a lot of work to do. Mira flinched at the assessment, but forced herself to meet Elena's gaze. Then teach me. Something like approval flickered across Elena's face. Good answer. First lesson. A Luna needs to be able to defend herself. Not because your alpha can't protect you, but because sometimes he won't be there. And because the pack needs to know you can hold your own. She gestured to the training circle. We'll start with basics. Balance. Footwork. How to take a hit without going down. The next 2 hours were brutal. Elena was merciless, pushing Mira past exhaustion, past pain, until her muscles screamed and sweat dripped into her eyes. But she didn't stop, didn't quit. Every time she fell, and she fell often, she got back up. Again, Elena commanded. Mira lunged, trying to execute the move Elena had shown her. She was too slow. Elena sidestepped easily and tapped her on the back of the head. A killing blow, if it had been real. You're telegraphing, Elena said. Your eyes give away your intention. An enemy will see it coming from a mile away. How do I stop it? Practice. Thousands of repetitions until it becomes instinct. Elena helped her to her feet. But that's enough for today. You did well. I didn't land a single hit. You didn't give up. That's more important. Elena's expression softened slightly. The alpha is watching, you know. He's been watching since we started. Myra's head snapped up. Sure enough, there was Cade, leaning against a tree at the edge of the grounds, his arms crossed. Even from this distance, she could feel the intensity of his gaze. He's been there the whole time. Heat flooded her cheeks. Every training session, Riley had rejoined them, offering Mira a water flask. He tries to be subtle about it, but we all know. He can't stand to let you out of his sight for long. That must drive him crazy, Mira murmured. All his alpha instincts screaming at him to interfere, to protect. You have no idea, Elena said dryly. Yesterday he nearly shifted when I knocked you down. Marcus had to physically restrain him. The thought of Cade fighting his protective instincts for her sake made something warm bloom in Myra's chest. She waved at him. After a moment's hesitation, he pushed off the tree and walked toward them. "How's the training?" he asked, his eyes scanning her for injuries with barely concealed concern. "She's tougher than she looks," Elena said. "Give me a month and she'll be able to take down half the warriors here." "I'm not sure about that," Mira said, but she couldn't help smiling. Cade's expression softened when he saw her smile. "You should rest. You've been at this for hours." "I'm fine." "You're swaying on your feet again." He moved closer, steadying her with a hand at her elbow. "Come on. Food first, then rest." As they walked back toward the tower, Mira became aware of wolves stopping to watch them pass. Some smiled. Others whispered behind their hands. She tried not to let it bother her. "They're talking about us," she said quietly. "They're always talking. It's what wolves do." Cade's hand moved to the small of her back, a possessive gesture that sent shivers up her spine. "Ignore them. Is it always going to be like this? Everyone watching, judging. Eventually they'll get used to us. You'll become just another part of pack life." He paused. "But yes," says Luna, "you'll always be watched more closely than others. It's the price of leadership." They entered the tower and climbed to the private dining room. Sage had already laid out a meal: roasted meat, fresh bread, vegetables. Myra's stomach growled. She sat and began eating, suddenly ravenous. Cade sat across from her, but she noticed he barely touched his own food. He was watching her instead, that intense focus that made her feel like the only thing in his world. "What?" she asked, self-conscious. "Just appreciating." His voice was rough. 3 days ago you were hidden in a cellar. Now you're training with my warriors, standing up to pack elders, becoming who you were always meant to be. It's remarkable. I'm terrified most of the time, she admitted. "I know, but you do it anyway. That's what makes you strong." The words settled over her like a warm blanket. For so long, Cordelia had told her she was weak, worthless, nothing. Hearing Cade say the opposite was still startling. "The challenge from Ronan," she said, changing the subject. "Tell me about him." Cade's expression darkened. "Ronan is old guard. He believes in the old ways. Might makes right, alphas rule through fear, Lunas are ornamental. He's been trying to expand Ironjaw territory for years, but I've blocked him at every turn. This challenge is his way of getting what he wants. By proving our bond is false. Yes, if he can cast doubt on the bond, he can challenge my right to lead. Other packs might join him. It could trigger a territorial war." Mira set down her fork. "Then we can't let that happen." "We won't." But there was something in his eyes. Worry, maybe, or fear. "Mira, I need to tell you something about completing the bond." Her heart rate picked up. "I'm listening." "The mating mark isn't just symbolic. When I bite you, when we exchange marks, it creates a permanent connection. You'll feel what I feel. I'll feel what you feel. Our wolves will be linked in ways that can't be undone." He leaned forward, his gaze intense. "If I die, you'll feel it. The pain could drive you mad. Some Lunas don't survive losing their alphas." The thought of Cade dying sent ice through her veins. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you need to understand what you're agreeing to. This isn't just politics or pack law. This is forever, Mira. Once we complete the bond, there's no going back. We'll be tied together until death." "I know. Do you?" He stood, began pacing. "You're 19. You've been free of Cordelia for less than a week. I'm asking you to tie yourself to me, to this pack, for the rest of your life. What if in a year, 5 years, 10 years, you regret it? What if you wish you'd had more time to explore who you are without being defined as someone's mate?" Mira stood too, moved to intercept his pacing. She placed her hands on his chest, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her palms. "Cade, look at me." He did, those golden eyes turbulent with emotion. "I understand what you're saying. I understand the risks. But you need to understand something too." She took a breath. "I've spent 3 years being told I was nothing, being treated like I didn't matter, like I didn't exist. And then you looked at me, really looked at me, and saw something worth claiming, worth protecting, worth loving." His hands came up to cover hers. "You are worth all of that and more. Then trust me to know my own mind. Trust me to make this choice." She held his gaze. "I want this bond, not because of Ronan, not because of pack politics. Because you're mine and I'm yours, and I'm tired of being afraid to claim what's mine." For a long moment, he just stared at her. Then he pulled her close, wrapping her in his arms, burying his face in her hair. "You undo me," he murmured against her temple. Completely and utterly. They stood like that for a long time, wrapped in each other, the mate bond humming between them like a living thing. Finally, Cade pulled back enough to look at her. 1 week. We'll complete the bond in 1 week, before the council meeting. That gives you time to be absolutely certain. I'm already certain. Humor me. She smiled. 1 week. The days that followed fell into a rhythm. Mornings with Elena on the training grounds. Afternoons learning pack business with Marcus. Territory boundaries, alliance agreements, trade negotiations. Evenings with Cade, talking about everything and nothing, slowly learning each other. And every night he stayed in the chair by the window while she slept, keeping watch. It was the 5th night when Mira finally broke the pattern. She woke to find him still awake, silhouetted against the moonlight, looking out over the forest. "Cade," he turned. "Go back to sleep. It's still early." Instead, she got out of bed and moved to stand beside him at the window. "What are you thinking about?" "Tomorrow is the anniversary of my father's death. He was killed in a challenge by a rival alpha when I was 17. I won the counter-challenge, but..." He trailed off. "But you still miss him. Every day." His voice was rough. He was a good alpha. Fair, strong, protective of the pack. "I've tried to rule the way he would have wanted, but sometimes I wonder if I'm too harsh. Too brutal." Mira considered this. "Earlier today, one of the younger wolves told me a story. He said that last winter, a rogue wolf attacked a family on the northern border. The parents were killed, but their 3 children survived. And you took them in personally, made sure they had housing, food, education, that you check on them every week." Cade looked uncomfortable. "It was my duty. Duty doesn't require weekly visits. Duty doesn't require making sure they feel safe and loved." She touched his arm. "You're not too brutal, Cade. You're exactly the alpha this pack needs." He turned to face her fully, and the expression in his eyes made her breath catch. "How do you do that?" "Do what?" "See the best in me, even when I can't see it myself." "That's what mates do," she said softly. "We see each other truly." The air between them changed, charged with something electric. Cade's hand came up to cup her face, his thumb tracing her lower lip. "Mira," he said, his voice dropping to a growl. "If you keep looking at me like that, I won't be able to stay in that chair anymore." Her heart thundered. "Then don't. We agreed to wait. I know what we agreed." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "I'm not saying we complete the bond tonight. I'm just saying, you don't have to sleep in the chair anymore. The bed is big enough for both of us." She could see the war on his face. Desire versus restraint, instinct versus control. "Are you sure?" "Yes." He studied her for another moment, then nodded. "All right, but just sleeping." We won't." "I know." She smiled. "I trust you." Those 3 words seemed to break something in him. He gathered her close, lifting her easily and carrying her to the bed. He laid her down gently, then stretched out beside her, pulling her back against his chest. The position was intimate but not threatening. His warmth enveloped her, his scent surrounded her, and for the first time in her life, Mira felt completely, utterly safe. "Sleep," he murmured against her hair. "I've got you." And she did, falling into the deepest, most peaceful sleep she'd ever known. In the morning, she woke to find herself curled against him, her head on his chest, his arms wrapped protectively around her. And she knew with absolute certainty that she'd made the right choice. In 2 days, they would complete the bond. And she couldn't wait. Chapter 6, The Storm. The day before the bonding ceremony, everything went wrong. Mira was in the library with Marcus, reviewing the formal protocols for the Northern Council meeting, when a messenger burst through the doors. He was young, barely past his first shift, and his face was pale with fear. "Alpha, Luna, there's been an attack on the southern border." Marcus was on his feet instantly. "What kind of attack?" "Rogues, sir. At least 20 of them. They hit the Miller family's farm, killed the livestock, burned the barn. The family escaped, but..." The boy swallowed hard. "They left a message carved into the door. It said the false Luna brings death." The words hit Mira like a physical blow. Her vision swam, and she gripped the edge of the table to stay upright. "Where's Cade?" Marcus demanded. "Already en route to the border with the strike team." Marcus cursed under his breath, then turned to Mira. "Luna, I need you to stay here. Lock yourself in the Alpha's quarters and don't come out until..." "No." Myra's voice was stronger than she felt. If this attack is about me, I need to see it. I need to understand what we're facing. The alpha will have my hide if I let you anywhere near a danger zone. Then he can take it up with me. She was already moving toward the door. I'm not hiding anymore, Marcus. Not from rogues, not from threats, not from anything. Either you take me to the southern border, or I find my own way there. Marcus studied her for a long moment, then nodded grimly. Elena, Riley, he bellowed. Escort detail for the Luna now. Within minutes, Mira was in an armored vehicle with Marcus driving and Elena and Riley flanking her in the back seat. 2 more vehicles full of warriors followed behind them. The drive took 20 minutes. 20 minutes for Myra's mind to spiral through every worst-case scenario. 20 minutes to wonder if this was her fault, if her mere existence was putting innocent people in danger. When they arrived at the farm, the scene was worse than she'd imagined. The barn was still smoldering, sending up plumes of black smoke. Dead livestock littered the ground, and carved into the farmhouse door in crude, violent letters, "The false Luna brings death." Cade was there, standing in the center of the destruction, his whole body radiating barely contained fury. When he saw Mira climbing out of the vehicle, his eyes flashed gold. What is she doing here? The words were directed at Marcus, but his gaze never left Mira. I gave explicit orders. She insisted, Marcus said calmly. And with respect, Alpha, she was right to come. This concerns her directly. Cade closed the distance between them in 3 long strides. You shouldn't be here. It's not safe. The message is about me, Mira said, forcing herself to meet his eyes despite the anger burning there. I needed to see. What you need is to be safe. What you need is to trust me to handle. I do trust you. She placed her hand on his chest, feeling the rapid thunder of his heart. But I'm not a child to be hidden away while others fight my battles. I'm going to be your Luna. Let me act like it. The tension stretched between them, thick and volatile. Finally, Cade released a long breath, the gold fading from his eyes. Fine. But you stay within 10 feet of me at all times. Understood. Understood. He turned to address the assembled warriors. The rogues left a clear trail heading east into the deadwood. They want us to follow, which means it's almost certainly a trap. So we don't follow, Elena suggested. No, we follow. Cade's smile was sharp and dangerous. But we spring their trap first. Marcus, take half the warriors and circle around through the northern approach. Elena, you take a team through the southern route. I'll go straight up the middle with the rest. We'll catch them between us. And the Luna? Marcus asked. Stays with me. Cade's tone brooked no argument. Where I can see her. The warriors dispersed to their assignments. Within minutes, they were moving into the deadwood, a dark, twisted forest where the trees grew so close together that sunlight barely penetrated. Mira stuck close to Cade, her senses on high alert. She'd never been in a situation like this before. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every sound made her jump. Breathe, Cade murmured, low enough that only she could hear. Trust your wolf. She'll warn you if danger is close. Mira focused inward, trying to connect with her wolf. The presence that had been dormant for so long stirred, alert and watchful. They'd been moving through the forest for maybe 15 minutes when her wolf suddenly howled a warning. Cade, I smell them too. His hand shot out, signaling the warriors to stop. Ambush positions. Now, the warriors melted into the shadows with practiced efficiency. Cade pulled Mira behind a massive oak, his body shielding hers. Then the rogues attacked. They came from all sides at once, mangy, scarred wolves with madness in their eyes. The deadwood erupted into chaos, snarls and screams echoing through the twisted trees. Cade shifted in a heartbeat, his massive black wolf launching into the fray with devastating efficiency. Mira watched in awe and horror as he tore through the rogues, a force of nature made flesh. But then she saw it. 3 rogues breaking away from the main fight, circling around, heading straight for her. Her wolf screamed a warning. Myra's body moved on instinct, everything Elena had taught her flooding back. She couldn't shift, not yet, not smoothly, but she could fight. The first rogue lunged. She sidestepped, exactly as Elena had taught her, and drove her elbow into its ribs. The creature yelped and stumbled. The second was faster. It slammed into her, driving her to the ground. Teeth snapped inches from her throat. She could smell its rotten breath, feel its claws raking her arms. Then a massive black form crashed into the rogue, ripping it away from her. Cade's wolf was a monster of fury, tearing through the creature with savage efficiency. But the distraction cost him. A fourth rogue, larger than the others, launched itself at Cade's exposed flank. Mira saw it happening as if in slow motion, saw the rogue's jaws opening, aiming for Cade's throat. No! The word ripped from her throat, and with it came something else. Power. Pure, raw, undeniable power. Her wolf surged forward, and for the first time in her life, Mira shifted. The transformation was agony and ecstasy combined. Bones cracked and reformed, muscles tore and knit back together, skin rippled with emerging fur. When it was done, she stood on 4 legs, her senses exploded into hyperclarity. And she was fast. She intercepted the rogue mid-leap, crashing into it with all her weight. They tumbled across the forest floor in a snarling mass of teeth and claws. The rogue was bigger, stronger, more experienced. But Mira was protecting her mate. She fought with a ferocity she didn't know she possessed, driven by instinct and the mate bond screaming at her to protect, protect, protect. The rogue's claws raked across her side, drawing blood. Pain exploded through her, but she didn't let go. She bit down on its throat and held on, tasting blood, feeling the creature's life pulse weaken beneath her jaws. Finally, it went still. Mira released it and stumbled backward, her wolf's chest heaving. Around her, the fight was ending. The rogues that weren't dead were fleeing. Marcus's team had arrived from the north, cutting off the escape routes. And Cade was staring at her with something like awe in his golden eyes. He shifted back to human form, not seeming to care that he was naked and covered in blood. He approached her slowly, as one might approach a spooked animal. Mira, you shifted. You actually shifted. She tried to respond, but only managed a whine. She didn't know how to shift back. Panic started to creep in. Cade knelt in front of her, his hands gentle on her fur. It's okay. I've got you. Just relax. Let the wolf recede. Picture your human form. Picture coming home to yourself. She focused on his voice, on the mate bond thrumming between them. Slowly, painfully, she felt the shift reverse. Bones cracked again, muscles reformed, and then she was human once more, kneeling naked in the dirt. Cade immediately wrapped her in his jacket, pulling her against his chest. You saved my life, he said, his voice rough with emotion. That rogue would have killed me if you hadn't stopped it. I couldn't let it hurt you. She was shaking, adrenaline and fear and triumph all crashing through her at once. I couldn't. I know. He held her tighter. I know. Around them, the warriors were securing the area, tending to the wounded, burning the dead rogues. But for a moment, it was just the two of them, holding each other in the aftermath of violence. The bonding ceremony, Mira said suddenly, pulling back to look at him. It's tomorrow. Are we? Nothing changes, Cade said firmly. Tomorrow, you become my Luna officially. Tomorrow, the whole world knows you're mine. She nodded, then winced as pain flared in her side. Blood was seeping through the jacket. Cade's eyes darkened. You're hurt. It's not bad. You're bleeding. We're going back. Now. He scooped her into his arms, ignoring her protest, and started toward the vehicles. Over his shoulder, he called to Marcus. Clean this up. I want to know who sent these rogues and why. Find me answers. The drive back was tense and silent. Elena, who was riding with them, kept checking Myra's injuries with professional efficiency. The wounds aren't deep, she pronounced. You were lucky. First shift, first real fight, and you're still alive. That's more than some can say. She's more than lucky, Cade said from the front seat. She's strong. Back at the tower, Cade personally tended to Myra's wounds, his touch gentle despite the fury still simmering in his eyes. When he was done, he wrapped her in soft blankets and pulled her against him on the bed. I almost lost you today, he said quietly. When I saw that rogue on top of you, he couldn't finish the sentence. But you didn't lose me. I'm right here. Because you shifted. Because you fought. He cupped her face, forcing her to meet his intense gaze. Do you understand what that means? You'd never fully shifted before. Most wolves need years of practice before they can shift mid-battle. But you did it instantly, because your mate was in danger. The bond, she whispered. The bond, he agreed. It's already so strong, Mira. And tomorrow, it's going to become unbreakable. She leaned into his touch, exhaustion pulling at her. I'm ready. I've been ready. I know. Sleep now. Tomorrow changes everything. As she drifted off, wrapped in warmth and safety, Myra's last conscious thought was that tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. She was done being afraid. Done being a victim. Done being anything other than what she was meant to be. Tomorrow she became Luna. And heaven help anyone who stood in her way. Chapter 7. The Claiming. The bonding ceremony was set for moonrise. Mira spent the day in a haze of preparation. Sage and Riley helped her bathe in water infused with moonflower and sage, traditional herbs meant to honor the moon goddess. They dressed her in a gown of pure white, simple but elegant, with silver embroidery along the hem that caught the light. "You look beautiful," Riley said, her eyes shining. "The Alpha's not going to be able to take his eyes off you." "I'm terrified," Mira admitted. "That's normal." Sage was braiding Myra's hair, weaving in small white flowers. "Every Luna feels this way before the bonding. It's a big step. What if I do something wrong? What if I mess up the ceremony?" "You won't." Riley squeezed her hand. "Just follow your instincts. The wolf knows what to do, even if your human mind doesn't." When they were finished, Mira barely recognized herself in the mirror. She looked regal, powerful, like someone who belonged beside an alpha, like a Luna. There was a knock at the door. Marcus entered, his expression solemn. "It's time, Luna. The pack is assembled." Mira took a deep breath and followed him out. The ceremony was being held in the heart of the forest, in a clearing ringed by ancient standing stones. Hundreds of pack members lined the perimeter, their eyes glowing in the gathering dusk. At the center stood Cade, wearing formal black with silver clasps, his alpha authority radiating from him like heat. When he saw her, his entire face transformed. The severe lines softened, and something fierce and tender blazed in his golden eyes. Marcus led her to the center of the clearing and placed her hand in Cade's. The moment their skin touched, the mate bond flared to life, singing through her veins. An elderly wolf stepped forward. Elder Garrett, the same one who had questioned her strength at that first pack meeting. But tonight, there was respect in his eyes. "We gather under the full moon," he intoned, his voice carrying across the clearing, "to witness the bonding of our alpha to his chosen mate. This bond is sacred, blessed by the moon goddess herself. Once completed, it cannot be broken except by death." He turned to Cade. "Alpha Cade of Shadowpine, do you claim this woman as your mate, your Luna, your equal in all things?" "I do." Cade's voice was steady and absolute. "She is mine, and I am hers, from this day until my last breath." Garrett turned to Mira. "Mira of Blackwater, do you accept this claim? Do you bind yourself to this alpha, this pack, this territory, for all the days of your life?" Myra's voice rang clear. "I do." "Then let the bond be sealed in the ancient way. Let the wolves claim what is theirs." Garrett stepped back, and suddenly it was just the two of them, standing in the center of the clearing with hundreds of eyes watching. Cade's hand came up to cup her face. "Are you ready?" She nodded, not trusting her voice. "It's going to hurt," he warned softly. "The claiming bite, it's not gentle. But I promise, the pain won't last long." "I know. I trust you." He leaned down, his lips brushing her ear. "I'll make it as quick as I can. And then you'll bite me. Can you do that?" "Yes." "Good." He pulled back enough to look into her eyes. "I love you, Mira. I should have said it before now, but I'm saying it now. I love you." The words stole her breath. "I love you too." His smile was brilliant and fleeting. Then his eyes flashed gold, and she felt his wolf surge forward. He moved fast, tilting her head to expose the junction of her neck and shoulder, the traditional claiming spot. She felt his breath hot against her skin, felt the scrape of extending canines. Then he bit down. The pain was instant and overwhelming. Fire raced through her veins, originating from the bite and spreading outward in waves. She gasped, her fingers digging into his shoulders, every muscle in her body going rigid. But beneath the pain was something else. The bond, which had been a warm thread connecting them, exploded into a living, breathing thing. She could feel him, his love, his possessiveness, his fierce joy. She could feel his wolf, wild and primal and utterly devoted to her. When he released her, she was shaking. Blood trickled down her neck, but she could already feel the wound beginning to heal, the alpha's saliva containing enzymes that would speed the process. "Your turn," Cade said, his voice rough. He tilted his head, exposing his own neck. "Claim me, Mira. Make me yours." Her wolf surged forward, eager and possessive. She let it guide her, let her canines extend until they were sharp and deadly. Then she bit down on his throat. Cade's groan was guttural, primal. She felt him shudder beneath her, felt the bond complete itself with a snap that resonated through both of them like lightning striking a tree. When she released him, the taste of his blood on her tongue, the clearing erupted in howls. The pack celebrated, their Alpha and Luna fully bonded at last. But Mira barely heard them. She was lost in Cade's eyes, in the overwhelming sensation of their completed bond. She could feel everything, his strength, his love, his absolute certainty that she was his and he was hers. Mine, he growled, pulling her against him. Yours, she agreed. Always yours. He kissed her then, deep and claiming, in front of the entire pack. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, the pack's howls had reached a fever pitch. The bond is complete, Elder Garrett announced. Behold your Luna. More howls, more celebration. But Cade was already lifting Mira into his arms, carrying her away from the clearing, back toward the tower. Where are we going? She asked, though she knew. Somewhere private. His voice was strained, barely human. The bond demands completion. We need. I know. She buried her face in his neck, breathing in his scent. I need it too. The tower had never seemed so far away. By the time they reached his chambers, their chambers now, both of them were trembling with need, the bond pulling them together with magnetic force. Cade set her down gently, then stepped back, visibly fighting for control. Last chance to change your mind. I'm not changing my mind. She reached up and unclasped the dress, letting it pool at her feet. I want this. I want you. The last thread of his control snapped. He was on her in an instant, lifting her, carrying her to the bed. His hands were everywhere, his mouth hot on her skin, and she was responding in kind, desperate to be closer, to eliminate any space between them. What followed was primal and raw and perfect, the joining of two souls that had been incomplete on their own. Each touch sent sparks through the bond. Each kiss deepened the connection, until Mira couldn't tell where she ended and he began. When it was over, they lay tangled together, both breathing hard, covered in a fine sheen of sweat. How do you feel? Cade asked, his voice rough. Mira took inventory. Her body ached in new ways. The claiming bite on her neck throbbed with a sweet pain. But beneath it all was a sense of rightness, of completion. Whole, she said finally. For the first time in my life, I feel whole. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her forehead. That's the bond. We're one now, in every way that matters. She traced the claiming mark on his neck, already healed to a silver scar that would never fade. Her mark. Her claim. The council meeting is in 5 days, she said quietly. Ronan can't challenge the bond now. Not with these marks. No, he can't. But he'll try something else. Men like him always do. Cade's arm tightened around her. But whatever he throws at us, we'll face it together. You're not alone anymore, Mira. You never will be again. The promise settled over her like a warm blanket. She was Luna now, fully and officially. The mark on her neck proclaimed it to the world. But more than that, she was loved. She was claimed. She was home. I love you, she whispered. I love you too. He kissed her softly. My Luna. My mate. Mine. Yours, she agreed, smiling against his lips. Always and forever yours. Outside, the moon climbed higher in the sky, blessing the newly bonded pair. And in the forest, the pack howled their approval, celebrating their Luna. The girl who had once been nothing was now everything. And her story was just beginning. The next morning brought unexpected visitors. Mira woke wrapped in Cade's arms, her body pleasantly sore, the claiming mark on her neck a constant reminder of what they'd done. She felt different, stronger, more confident. The bond hummed between them, a constant presence in the back of her mind. Cade stirred beside her, his eyes opening to meet hers. Good morning, Luna. She smiled. Good morning, Alpha. He pulled her in for a kiss, slow and deep, and she was just starting to think they might not leave the bed for several more hours when there was an urgent knock at the door. Alpha. Marcus's voice was strained. We have a situation. Cade growled in frustration but rolled out of bed, pulling on pants. This better be important. It is. Alpha Ronan is here. He came with an entourage of 30 warriors and is demanding an audience. Now, Mira sat up, clutching the sheets to her chest. He's here, but the council meeting isn't for 5 more days. Exactly. Cade's expression was dark. He's up to something. Get dressed. Both of you meet me in the Great Hall in 10 minutes. After Marcus left, Cade turned to Mira. I want you to stay behind me during this meeting. Ronan is dangerous, and I don't trust him. I'm Luna now, she said quietly. I need to face this. I know. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. He crossed to her, pulling her to her feet and kissing her fiercely. No matter what he says, remember, you are mine. The bond is complete. He has no grounds to challenge it. Then why is he here? That's what we're about to find out. They dressed quickly and made their way to the great hall. Ronan was already there, a massive man with gray-streaked hair and cold blue eyes. His warriors flanked him, all of them radiating barely contained aggression. When Ronan saw Mira enter beside Cade, his lip curled. So the rumors are true. The great Alpha Cade has bonded with this. His eyes raked over her with open disdain. A half-starved Omega with no pack standing. Tell me, Cade, was the selection really that poor this year? Cade's growl shook the walls. Watch your tongue, Ronan. That's my Luna you're insulting. Your Luna. Ronan laughed, the sound ugly. Look at her. She can barely stand without trembling. She's weak, damaged, and she makes you weak by association. Mira felt heat flood her cheeks, shame and anger warring inside her. But then she felt Cade's presence through the bond. Steady, strong, absolutely certain of her worth. And she realized something. Ronan's words only had power if she believed them. She stepped forward, pulling away from Cade's protective arm. Every instinct in her screamed to hide, to make herself small. But she was Luna now, and Lunas didn't hide. You're right, she said, her voice carrying across the hall. I was weak. I was damaged. I was kept in a cellar for 3 years, starved and beaten and told I was nothing. She met Ronan's eyes steadily. But I survived. And then I found my mate, my alpha, and I became something more. So yes, I was broken. But I'm not broken anymore. I'm Luna of Shadowpine. And if you think that makes Cade weak, you're welcome to test that theory. The hall was dead silent. Ronan's face had gone red with fury. Insolent. She is Luna, Cade said, his voice deadly quiet. And you will address her with respect, or you will leave my territory in pieces. Your choice. Ronan visibly struggled to regain his composure. Finally, he gave a mocking bow. My apologies, Luna. I meant no disrespect. The words were acid. Then why are you here? Mira asked. I came to deliver news. News that affects us all. Ronan pulled a sealed letter from his coat. This arrived from the Northern Council this morning. It seems someone has filed a formal complaint against your bonding. Cade snatched the letter and broke the seal. As he read, his expression grew darker. What is it? Mira asked. It's from Cordelia, Cade said, his voice tight with fury. She's claiming that you were coerced into the bond. That I used my alpha authority to force you into accepting the mate claim. She's demanding the council investigate and potentially nullify the bond. Myra's blood ran cold. She can't do that. The bond is complete. Under normal circumstances, no. But if she can prove coercion, the council has the authority to break even a completed bond. Cade crumpled the letter in his fist. This is what Ronan came to see. He wants to watch us scramble. Actually, Ronan said, his smile sharp, I came to offer a solution. We don't need anything from you, Cade snarled. Are you sure? Because from where I'm standing, you're about to lose your Luna and face a council trial for abuse of authority. But I could help you avoid all that. How? The word was forced out through clenched teeth. Simple. Dissolve the bond voluntarily. Let the girl go back to her family. Never. Cade's eyes blazed gold. And bond with my daughter instead. It would be a proper alliance between Shadowpine and Ironjaw. Strong bloodlines, political stability. Everything a true alpha needs. Mira felt sick. This was Ronan's real plan. Use Cordelia's accusation to force Cade into a political bond, weakening Shadowpine and strengthening Ironjaw. Your daughter is 16, Cade said coldly. Even if I were interested, which I'm not, she's too young to bond. She'll be of age in 6 months. You could wait. I have. A mate. Each word was punctuated with barely restrained violence. I will not dissolve the bond. Not for you, not for the council, not for anyone. Then you'll face the trial. And when they find you guilty of coercion, because let's be honest, what Omega wouldn't claim coercion when faced with an alpha like you? You'll lose your pack. Your territory. Everything. Ronan's smile widened. Unless, of course, your Luna is willing to testify on your behalf. To tell the council that she chose this bond freely. All eyes turned to Mira. She felt the weight of the moment, understood what was being asked. If she testified, she'd have to face Cordelia again, have to relive the abuse in front of the entire Northern Council, have to expose her darkest moments for all to see and judge. But if she didn't, Cade would lose everything. "I'll do it," she said. "I'll testify." "Mira, no," Cade started, but she cut him off. "Yes. They want proof the bond is real. I'll give them proof. I'll tell them everything Cordelia did, everything I survived, and how I chose you despite it all." She turned to Ronan. "And when I'm done, your little scheme will fall apart, and everyone will see you for what you are, a coward trying to steal what you're too weak to earn." Ronan's face went purple with rage. "You dare." "She dares," Cade said, pulling Mira against his side. "Because she's Luna, and she's stronger than you'll ever be. Now get out of my territory before I forget that attacking a visiting alpha is bad politics." For a moment, Ronan looked like he might actually attack. Then he spun on his heel and stalked out, his warriors trailing behind him. When they were gone, Cade pulled Mira into his arms, holding her so tightly she could barely breathe. "You shouldn't have agreed to testify," he said into her hair. "I can't let you face Cordelia again. You don't get to decide that." She pulled back to look at him. "I'm Luna now. That means I fight for this pack. For us. And if fighting means facing my past, then that's what I'll do." He cupped her face, his eyes burning with love and pride and fear. "You're the strongest person I've ever met. I learned from the best." She smiled. "Now let's go prepare. We have a council meeting to win." Chapter 8. The Trial. The council chambers were ancient, carved from a single massive piece of granite deep in the heart of the White Peak Mountains. Mira stood at the entrance, staring at the heavy iron doors, trying to calm her racing heart. "You don't have to do this," Cade said for the 100th time. He stood beside her, formal in his alpha regalia, but his eyes were worried. "We can fight this another way." "There is no other way." Mira adjusted the silver circlet on her head, the mark of her Luna status. She wore a deep blue gown that left the claiming mark on her neck clearly visible. "Let them all see the proof of their bond. If I don't testify, they'll assume Cordelia is telling the truth. They'll dissolve the bond. They can try." His hand found hers, squeezing gently. "The bond is complete. Breaking it would kill us both. Then let's make sure they don't try." The doors swung open, and they entered together. The chamber was circular, with 7 stone thrones arranged in a semicircle. 6 were occupied by the council alphas, the oldest and most powerful leaders in the Northern Territories. The 7th throne, directly in the center, belonged to the High Alpha, a woman named Thora who was rumored to be over 200 years old. Her eyes, when they landed on Mira, were sharp and assessing. Hundreds of witnesses filled the gallery. Alphas from neighboring packs, nobles, warriors. All of them here to watch the trial of Alpha Cade and his controversial Luna. And there, in the front row of the gallery, sat Cordelia. Myra's steps faltered. She hadn't seen her stepmother since the night Cade had carried her out of Blackwater. Cordelia looked older, thinner, but her eyes still held that cold calculation that had haunted Myra's nightmares. "Steady," Cade murmured, his presence through the bond a warm anchor. "I'm right here." They took their places at the center of the floor. Ronan and his delegation sat to the left, barely concealing their anticipation. High Alpha Thora raised her hand, and the chamber fell silent. "We are here to hear the complaint of Cordelia Blackwater against Alpha Cade of Shadowpine. The charge is coercion of a mate bond. Specifically, that Alpha Cade used his authority to force Mira Blackwater into accepting a bond against her will." Thora's voice echoed in the stone chamber. "This is a grave accusation. If proven true, the bond will be dissolved and Alpha Cade will be stripped of his rank. If proven false, Cordelia Blackwater will face charges of false testimony, punishable by exile or death. The stakes couldn't be clearer. Cordelia Blackwater, present your case." Cordelia stood, and Mira was struck by how different she looked. Fragile, maternal, the perfect picture of a concerned mother. It was an act, a masterful performance, and Mira felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "High Council," Cordelia began, her voice trembling just slightly. "I come before you with a heavy heart. My stepdaughter Mira is a fragile girl. After her father's death 3 years ago, she struggled terribly with grief. She became unstable, prone to delusions and wild claims. Lies, all lies, but delivered with such conviction that Mira saw several council members nodding sympathetically. When Alpha Cade arrived at our estate for the lunar gathering, Mira became fixated on him. She followed him, threw herself at him, claimed to be his mate despite having no evidence of a true bond. And Alpha Cade, perhaps feeling pity for this damaged girl, or perhaps seeing an opportunity to claim territory through marriage to a Blackwater heir, went along with her delusion. "That's not what happened," Mira said, her voice ringing out clearly. "She's lying." "Order." Thora's command silenced the murmurs that had started in the gallery. "You will have your chance to speak, Luna. For now, let Cordelia finish." Cordelia smiled, a small sad smile that made Myra's skin crawl. "I tried to protect my stepdaughter. I tried to shield her from herself. But Alpha Cade removed her from my care before I could get her proper help. And now she stands before you, marked and bonded, trapped in a bond she never truly chose." The silence that followed was heavy. Mira could feel the doubt in the room, could see it on the faces of the council members. This was worse than she'd thought. Cordelia wasn't just accusing Cade. She was painting Mira as mentally incompetent, incapable of making her own choices. "Does the Luna wish to respond?" Thora asked. Mira stood, her legs shaking but her voice steady. "Everything Cordelia just said is a lie. And I can prove it." "Proceed." Mira took a breath. This was it, the moment she'd been dreading. She would have to expose everything, relive every moment of abuse, lay bare her trauma for hundreds of strangers to judge. But Cade's presence through the bond steadied her. She could feel his love, his support, his absolute faith in her strength. 3 years ago, my father died. Cordelia was his second wife, married to him for only 2 years. The moment he was gone, everything changed. Myra's voice was clear, factual. She moved me from my chambers to a servant's room, then to a storage closet. Finally, to a cellar in the East Wing. I was given 1 meal a day, scraps usually. I was beaten if I spoke out of turn or failed to complete impossible amounts of work. I was told repeatedly that I was worthless, that I deserved nothing, that I should be grateful she let me live at all. "These are the delusions I mentioned," Cordelia interjected. "My stepdaughter has always had an overactive imagination." "I have scars," Mira said, cutting her off. She turned to address the council directly. "Physical scars from 3 years of abuse. Medical records from Shadowpine's healers documenting malnutrition. Broken bones that healed incorrectly. Evidence of long-term trauma. You want proof? I'll give you proof." She reached for the clasp at her shoulder, but Cade was suddenly there, his hand stopping hers. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly, so only she could hear. "Not in front of everyone." "Yes, I do." She met his eyes. "Trust me." He studied her face for a long moment, then nodded and stepped back. Mira undid the clasp and let the gown slip down to her waist, leaving her upper body covered only by a thin shift. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Her back was a map of scars. White lines from a whip, circular burns from cigarettes, the mottled pattern of poorly healed bruises. 3 years of torture, written on her skin for all to see. "These are not delusions," Mira said, her voice hard. "These are facts. Documented, witnessed, undeniable facts. Cordelia kept me locked away, hidden from the world, because I was the rightful heir to Blackwater territory and she wanted it for her daughters. She systematically destroyed me, trying to break me down until I was nothing." She pulled the gown back up and faced the council. "But she failed. I survived. And when my mate found me, when Alpha Cade's wolf recognized mine, I chose him. Freely, consciously, with full knowledge of what the bond meant. Not because I was delusional or coerced, but because he was mine and I was his, and no amount of abuse could change that." The chamber was dead silent. Several council members looked shaken. One older alpha had tears in his eyes. Cordelia's face had gone white. "She's exaggerating. Teenage girls are so dramatic." "Bring in the witnesses," Cade said, his voice cutting across Cordelia's protests. The doors opened and 3 figures entered. Lyanna, Cordelia's younger daughter, looking pale but determined. A middle-aged woman Mira recognized as one of the Blackwater servants. And a man in healer's robes. "These witnesses will corroborate every claim my Luna has made," Cade said. "And they will testify to the conditions we found her in when I claimed her." One by one, the witnesses spoke. Lyanna, crying, admitted to seeing her mother beat Mira. The servant described finding Mira locked in the cellar with no food or water for days. The healer presented detailed medical records documenting the extent of Myra's injuries. With each testimony, Cordelia's carefully constructed lies crumbled. Her face went from white to red, and Mira could see the rage building beneath the surface. Finally, High Alpha Thora raised her hand for silence. "I have heard enough. Cordelia Blackwater, the evidence against you is overwhelming. Your claim of the Luna's mental instability is clearly false, designed to hide your own crimes. She leaned forward, her ancient eyes hard. You tortured a child in your care. You attempted to steal territory through abuse and isolation. And now you have wasted this council's time with lies. No, you don't understand. She was supposed to disappear. She was supposed to. Cordelia was losing control, the mask finally slipping. The bond between Alpha Cade and Luna Mira is legitimate and will stand, Thora declared. Furthermore, Cordelia Blackwater is hereby stripped of all titles and territory. Blackwater lands will be returned to their rightful heir, Luna Mira, and Cordelia herself will be exiled from all Pact territories to live the rest of her days as a rogue. May the Moon Goddess have mercy on her, for no Pact will. The sentence was devastating. To be cast out from Pact society, to live as a rogue. It was considered a fate worse than death. Cordelia screamed, a horrible, inhuman sound. She lunged toward Mira, her hands reaching like claws. But Cade was faster. He caught Cordelia mid-leap, lifting her effortlessly and throwing her back. His eyes blazed gold, his alpha command rolling through the chamber like thunder. Touch my mate, and I will end you where you stand. Cordelia crumpled to the floor, sobbing. Guards moved in to remove her, dragging her away as she screamed threats and curses. Mira watched her go, waiting for the satisfaction, the triumph, the sense of justice served. Instead, she felt empty, sad. It was over, but there was no joy in victory. Only the weight of all those lost years. Cade was beside her instantly, pulling her into his arms. It's done. She can never hurt you again. I know. Mira buried her face in his chest. I thought it would feel different. Winning. That's because you have a good heart. He pressed a kiss to the top of her head. You never wanted revenge. You just wanted to be free. And now you are. High Alpha Thora addressed them once more. Alpha Cade, Luna Mira, you have the Council's apology for the pain this trial has caused. Your bond is recognized and honored. Return to your pack with our blessing. As they left the chamber, Mira caught sight of Ronan in the gallery. His face was twisted with fury. His plan had failed spectacularly. But the look he gave them promised this wasn't over. Let him plot, Mira thought. She was Luna now, bonded and marked and free. Whatever came next, she would face it standing tall. No more hiding. No more fear. She was done being a victim. The journey back to Shadowpine took 2 days. When they finally arrived at the tower, the entire pack was waiting to greet them, howling their welcome. Mira stood on the balcony that night, looking out over the forest that was now her home, the pack that was now her family. Cade came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. What are you thinking about? He asked. About how much has changed. A month ago, I was locked in a cellar, convinced I would die there. Now I'm Luna. I have a pack, a mate, a future. She leaned back against him. It doesn't feel real sometimes. It's real. He turned her to face him, cupping her face in his hands. You're real. This is real. And I will spend every day for the rest of our lives making sure you never doubt it. She smiled, standing on her toes to kiss him. I love you. I love you too. He kissed her back, deep and claiming. My Luna. My mate. Mine. Yours, she agreed. Always yours. They stood there as the moon rose higher. Two souls bound together, facing whatever the future held. Together. Chapter 9, The Luna Rising. 3 months had passed since the trial. Mira stood in what had once been Cordelia's study at Blackwater Estate, now stripped of all its cold elegance and being rebuilt into something warmer. The council had officially transferred the territory to her, making her not just Luna of Shadowpine, but also Lady of Blackwater in her own right. It was strange being back in this house, but it no longer held power over her. The contractors say they can have the East Wing renovated by spring, Riley said, appearing in the doorway with a stack of papers. They want to know if you want to keep any of the original structure or tear it all down. Mira thought of the cellar, the narrow corridors, the locked doors. Tear it down. All of it. I want that entire wing rebuilt from the foundation up. Good choice. Riley grinned. What are you going to do with the space? A sanctuary. For wolves who've been abused or cast out. A place where they can heal, learn to be strong again. Mira turned to face her friend. Like I did. Riley's eyes shone. The Alpha is going to love that idea. The Alpha already loves it. Cade's voice came from behind them. He entered the study, moving with that predatory grace that still made Myra's heart skip. Even after 3 months of being bonded, the sight of him took her breath away. I thought you were meeting with the Border Patrol, Mira said as he pulled her into his arms. Meeting's done. I wanted to check on my mate. He nuzzled her neck, right over the claiming mark. You've been here for hours. Are you okay? Being back in this house. I'm fine. And she was. The nightmares had faded. The fear had loosened its grip. She was healing, slowly but surely. It's different now. This isn't Cordelia's house anymore. It's mine. Ours. Ours, he agreed, seeming pleased by that. Have you decided what you want to do about Lyanna? Lyanna, Cordelia's younger daughter, who had testified against her own mother at the trial. She'd been living at Shadowpine for the past month, working in the kitchens, trying to earn her place. I want her to stay, Mira said. She's not responsible for Cordelia's crimes. And she was brave, testifying like that. She deserves a chance to build a new life. Cade studied her face. You're remarkably forgiving. I'm not forgiving Cordelia. Cordelia earned her exile. Mira shook her head. But Lyanna was a victim too, in her own way. Just like I was. If I can heal, so can she. He kissed her temple. You're going to be an incredible Luna. You already are. A commotion from outside interrupted them. They heard shouting, the sound of horses, and then Marcus burst into the study. Alpha Luna, we have visitors. From Ironjaw territory. Cade's expression immediately went cold. Ronan. No. His daughter. She's asking for asylum. They exchanged glances and hurried outside. A girl stood in the courtyard, barely 16, her face bruised and swollen. She was supported by 2 of Cade's border guards. Please, she gasped when she saw them. Please, I need sanctuary. My father. He found out I didn't want to bond with anyone. He said I was useless, that I'd ruined his plans. She touched her bruised face. I ran. I didn't know where else to go. Myra's heart clenched. She knew that fear, that desperation. She moved forward immediately, despite Cade's warning growl. You're safe now, she told the girl. What's your name? Kara. Kara, I'm Luna Mira. This is my mate, Alpha Cade. You're under our protection now. No one will hurt you here. But my father, he'll come for me. Let him. Cade's voice was hard. If Ronan sets foot on my territory to reclaim you by force, it will be the last thing he does. Relief flooded Kara's face. She collapsed and Mira caught her, supporting her weight. Riley, get the healers, Mira commanded. And prepare a room in the guest wing. Kara is our guest, and she'll be treated as such. As they helped Kara inside, Cade pulled Mira aside. You realize what this means? Giving Ronan's daughter sanctuary is essentially declaring war on Ironjaw. Good, Mira said fiercely. He tried to use his daughter as a political pawn. He abused her when she refused. He deserves whatever's coming to him. Cade's expression softened, pride shining in his eyes. There's my Luna, the one who faced down the council, the one who fights for those who can't fight for themselves. I learned from the best. She smiled up at him. Besides, you were never going to turn her away either. No, he admitted. I wasn't. Over the next week, Kara slowly began to heal. She and Lyanna became fast friends, bonding over their shared experiences with abusive parents. Mira watched them together and felt a fierce satisfaction. This was what being Luna meant. Not just standing beside an alpha, but building something better. A pack where the broken could heal, where the scared could find courage, where no one had to hide in the dark anymore. But as she'd expected, Ronan didn't take his daughter's defection quietly. The message arrived on the 7th day, delivered by a lone wolf who collapsed at the border. Written in blood on scraped hide, it was brief and brutal. Return my daughter or face the consequences. This is your final warning. Cade read it, then calmly fed it to the fire in his study. He's going to attack, Marcus said. We need to prepare. We've been preparing since the day he walked into our great hall. Cade looked at Mira. But I want you somewhere safe. You and Kara both. If this turns into a full pack war, then I fight with my pack, Mira interrupted. I'm not hiding anymore, Cade. Not from Ronan, not from anyone. You've barely trained for 3 months. Then it's a good thing I have a very protective mate and an entire pack of warriors who won't let me die. She moved into his space, placing her hands on his chest. I know you want to keep me safe, but I'm Luna. Where you go, I go. That's what the bond means. Through their connection, she felt his turmoil, the instinct to protect warring with respect for her strength and choice. Finally, he nodded. Fine, but you stay with the defensive line. You don't engage unless there's no other choice. Agreed. The attack came 3 days later at dawn. Ronan brought his entire pack. Over 200 warriors, all of them hungry for blood and territory. They hit the southern border like a tsunami, overwhelming the first defensive line within minutes. But Cade had been preparing. His wolves fell back in organized ranks, drawing Ironjaw deeper into Shadowpine territory, into the trap he'd laid. Mira stood on the watchtower, coordinating the defensive positions, her voice clear and steady as she relayed information through the pack link. It was still new, this ability to speak mind-to-mind with the pack, but she was getting stronger every day. "Ronan's heading for the eastern approach," she reported to Cade. "He's left his flank exposed." "I see it." Cade's voice through the bond was calm, focused. "Elena, take your squad and hit them from the side. Mira, have the archers target their rear guard." The battle was brutal and swift. Cade had trained his warriors well, and they moved with the precision of a machine. Within an hour, Ironjaw's advance had stalled. And then Ronan made his mistake. Seeing his plan falling apart, he broke away from the main force and made a direct run for the tower, for Mira. "He's coming for you," Cade snarled through the bond. "Get inside now." But Mira saw Ronan's trajectory and understood his plan. He was trying to draw Cade away from the battle, to divide his forces. If she ran, if she hid, she'd be giving Ronan exactly what he wanted. So instead, she walked out onto the balcony where everyone could see her. "Ronan," her voice carried across the battlefield, amplified by her Luna authority. "Is this what an alpha of your supposed strength does? Attacks the mate of another alpha? How pathetic." Ronan skidded to a stop, his massive wolf form looking up at her with burning eyes. "You took my daughter," he snarled, his voice barely human. "You turned her against me. I gave her sanctuary from you. There's a difference." Mira stood tall, showing no fear. "Kara is under my protection now, and if you want her back, you'll have to go through me." "So be it." Ronan shifted mid-leap, his human form twisting into the massive gray wolf. He launched himself at the tower, climbing the stone with his claws. Mira had seconds to react. Every instinct screamed at her to run, to shift, to do something. Instead, she waited. She waited until Ronan was halfway up the tower, fully committed to the climb. Then she leaned over the balcony and smiled. "Now," she said softly. The archers she'd positioned on the adjacent towers fired as one. 20 arrows found their mark, piercing Ronan's shoulders, his back, his legs. Not killing blows. Mira had ordered them to wound, not kill. She wanted him alive to face justice. Ronan fell, crashing to the ground with a howl of pain and rage. And then Cade was there, his black wolf standing over Ronan's fallen form, teeth bared in a snarl that promised death. "Yield," Cade commanded, his alpha voice rolling across the battlefield. The fight went out of Ironjaw's warriors. Their alpha was down, defeated by a Luna's trap. One by one, they shifted back to human form and knelt in submission. Ronan, bleeding and beaten, finally shifted back as well. He looked up at Mira on the balcony, his eyes filled with impotent fury. "You," he spat. "You're not even a real Luna. You're just a—" "I'm the Luna who just defeated you," Mira said calmly. "And now you're going to stand trial before the Northern Council for unprovoked attack on another pack's territory. I imagine they won't be as lenient as I was with the arrows." Ronan was dragged away by Shadowpine warriors, his howls of rage echoing across the battlefield. When it was over, when the wounded were tended to and the prisoners secured, Cade came to find Mira. She was still on the balcony, watching the sun rise over her territory. "That was incredibly stupid," he said, pulling her into his arms. "And incredibly brave. And I'm furious with you for putting yourself in danger, and so proud of you I could burst." She laughed, turning in his arms to face him. "I knew what I was doing." The archers had clear shots, and Ronan was too enraged to think strategically. It was the best way to end it quickly with minimal casualties. Still, he rested his forehead against hers. "My heart stopped when I saw him going for you." "I know. I felt it through the bond." She touched his face. "But you trusted me anyway. Thank you for that. Always." He kissed her softly. "You're not the frightened girl I found in that cellar anymore. You're a warrior, a leader, a true Luna." "I'm your Luna," she corrected. "That's all I need to be." 6 months later, Mira stood in the newly renovated east wing of Blackwater Estate. Now officially the sanctuary, a haven for abused and displaced wolves. Kara was helping her organize the sleeping quarters, her bruises long healed, her smile genuine. The first group arrives tomorrow, Kara said. 5 wolves from different packs, all escaping bad situations. Are you nervous? Terrified, Mira admitted. What if I can't help them? What if I say the wrong thing? You won't. Kara squeezed her hand. You saved me. You saved Lyanna. You'll save them too, just by showing them that healing is possible. That night, Mira returned to Shadowpine Tower and found Cade waiting for her in their chambers. He was standing by the window, looking out at the forest, and when he turned to face her, his expression was serious. I have something for you, he said. He held out a small wooden box. Inside was a ring, not ornate or flashy, but simple and elegant, carved from dark wood with a silver wolf inlaid in the band. It was my mother's, he said quietly. She was Luna before she died, and she was strong like you, fierce like you. I think she would have loved you. Tears pricked Myra's eyes as he slid the ring onto her finger. You're already my Luna, already my mate, Cade continued. But I wanted you to have this. A symbol of the legacy you're building, the lives you're changing, the pack you're protecting. It's perfect. She threw her arms around him, holding him tight. I love you so much. I love you too. He pulled back to look at her, his golden eyes warm. You know, when I first caught your scent at that gathering, I thought I was finding my mate. I didn't realize I was finding my equal, my partner, my everything. Careful, Alpha. You're getting soft. He growled playfully, lifting her and carrying her to the bed. Want me to prove how not soft I am? She laughed, pulling him down to her. Yes, please. They made love slowly, tenderly, the bond singing between them. And afterward, wrapped in his arms, Mira thought about how far she'd come. From a girl locked in a cellar to a Luna ruling 2 territories. From broken to healed. From victim to victor. And it was all because one Alpha had looked at her, really looked at her, and seen not what she had been, but what she could become. What are you thinking about? Cade murmured against her hair. About how much I love our life. Our pack. Our future. Speaking of the future, he placed a hand on her stomach, his expression turning reverent. The pack healer confirmed it this morning. You're pregnant. The world stopped. What? We're going to have a pup. You and me. His smile was incandescent. In about 7 months. Joy exploded through her, so intense it was almost painful. A baby. Their baby. A new life they would protect and love and raise to be strong. We're having a baby, she whispered, touching her still flat stomach with wonder. We're having a baby, he confirmed, kissing her deeply. Our heir. Our future. That night, wrapped in her mate's arms, with their child growing inside her and her pack sleeping safely around them, Mira finally understood what home meant. It wasn't a place. It wasn't even a person. It was this, the bond, the love, the family they'd built from broken pieces. She was Luna Mira of Shadowpine and Blackwater, and her story was far from over. It was only just beginning. The end.